Hello. All right then. Good evening. I will call the meeting for the Commission for the Arts to order at 5:01. Absent a chair, I will conduct the meeting until we have one. Would you please do the roll call?
So let the record show all commissioners are present except for Commissioner Abraham.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight we have a couple of special presentations. We have some new commissioners, and the previous commission had requested that we invite the rest of the Cultural Arts Division to be introduced. So I'd like to present Arts Assistant Connor Sheehan. You can stand, you can stand. And Connor's been with us for about a year now. And our most recent addition, Jessica Roberts, joined us in early January. So our tiny but mighty division is now 2.75 people. And as if you don't already know, we get a lot done with those 2.75 people. So it's the three of us. We're very grateful to have them. Next, we have Naime Woodward with Encinitas Friends of the Arts.
Sorry, guys, just bear with me. Okay. Well, good evening and welcome. Welcome to our new commissioners. And a special thank goes to, I thought perhaps Nivardo and Michael would be here too, but I guess not. But I just want to acknowledge them for all the work they have done and also for serving on our board. As you may find out, we have 3 commissioners on our board, and they normally serve for about a year. And then the following year, another commissioner joins us. So just a little background. Well, my name is Naime Woodward, and I'm the president of Encinitas Friends of the Arts. I was a commissioner, just like you, for about 5 years. And at some point, I said, well, I want to do something that's more tangible and we can actually enjoy the benefit of being on the commission and focus on the cultural aspect of our community. And also at that point, we were purchasing Pacific View. So we wanted to do advocacy and fundraising for Pacific View. And that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years. I've been engaged in those conversations. And some of us, like Kathleen, same, and I have a couple of our board members here, Deanne Sabak, and she was with us at that time too, and she continues to be on the board. So we've done quite a bit. Just a little background in our mission at that time when we established Encinitas Friends of the Arts was to partner with the city of Encinitas by fundraising, advocating for arts in Encinitas and city-owned art venues or art center. So as the president of Encinitas Friends of the Arts, I'm truly proud of our arts advocacy. I mean, after all, the Pacific View was designated as an arts center. It took quite a bit of efforts and advocacy, and a lot of people were involved in that, and I'm grateful for that. And so that kind of shifted our focus a little bit, and I will talk to you a little bit about it. I just want to give you a little background. And we are a grassroots arts advocacy nonprofit, and we are volunteers. And our focus was cultural programming and doing events, and we always considered promoting cultural arts and through events to this point. And one of obviously, our biggest event was Dia de los Muertos, and I'm going to kind of talk about it at the end of the presentation because we have made some changes to it. And that's our biggest event, and we have done it in partnership with the city of Encinitas. And we have enjoyed our relationship with the city for the last 9 years through the memorandum of understanding that we have with the city, and we've done a lot of the work we've done in partnership with the city. So earlier this year, we had a retreat, and given the fact that Pacific View has been designated as an arts and culture center now, we feel like we have done quite a bit. We did our job, one of the things that we wanted to do. So it's like, so what do we do now? How do we recreate ourselves? And where do we go from here? We're all volunteers, and some of us are aging right here. And so it's how do we move forward, and how do we have a presence in the community and do advocacy without duplicating? Because we don't want to duplicate what others do in the community. We want to be advocates, for the arts, for the individual artists, for other nonprofits, and how could we bring funding and do fundraising for Pacific View. So we met, we chatted, and we kind of changed some of our strategies. So in this presentation, I'm going to kind of talk about our new mission and vision. And as you see, this is our new mission, which is essentially to elevate arts and culture, which was our elevator speech priorly, but now this is our mission. Not exclusively in Encinitas, but also in North County, because we feel it's through partnerships with the community as a whole, neighboring community, we can accomplish more. And our vision is obviously to turn Encinitas into a cultural arts hub by encouraging equitable cultural programming, which we've been doing, and helping to increase arts education, particularly for the underserved, because that has been part of our vision all along, and supporting the installment of public art and cultural events. And it's not very different than what we've done before, but, and I will tell you a little more as we go through the slides. So we are continuing to help to blossom, Encinitas as a cultural arts hub, and we work with the staff of the Cultural Arts Division, Colette and Connor, and now Jesse, and the Cultural Tourism Committee. We've been very active in that committee as well, and obviously with you all, Commissioners for the Arts. So it's been a wonderful partnership, and we would like to continue with it. So it was kind of organic in the beginning. I've never started a nonprofit, so we learned along the way, but we knew our focus wanted to be on culture and celebrating the diversity in our community through cultural arts. And so we started having Passport Series, which was a focus on celebrating countries, and we did a lot of work around it, and the community got to know members of the different communities, such as, we had Passport to India, we had Passport to Cuba, Passport to France, so on and so forth. And for one evening, they could enjoy and feel as if like in that country. And it was through performing arts, food, marketplace, and, a lot of work, but it was amazing. And people are still talking about it. And then, obviously, one of my dreams was to have a Dia de los Muertos event, because I used to go to Mexico a lot, in San Francisco, and I was very active in San Diego and the Barrio Logan when they were doing the murals. So I've always been passionate about the Latino culture and the arts and their celebration, and the biggest one is the Day of the Dead. So we started it, and our first event was at the library. About 2,000 people showed up, and at that time, city decided to partner with us, and now we get 3,000 to 4,000 people coming to this event. So it's a major event. So that has been one of our success stories, and we celebrated our 9th annual one last October. And another area that we're passionate about is public art. And we are proud to have been the first organization to purchase city's first permanent art sculpture by very renowned artists, local artists, and it's located on 101, and you may have seen it. It's in front of SRF, Self-Realization Gifts and Bookshop. I don't know if some of you have seen it. So we're pretty proud of that. And then we started the program, Ballet Folklorico, at the same time. And it's right now it's on Saturdays at the community center, and we have children. Well, some of them are actually even younger than 7, but from 7 to 16 years old, and they've just been doing amazing. Our dancers for the last 9 years, the little ones have grown up, and they're performing throughout San Diego and even Los Angeles, and they're absolutely amazing. We're very proud of them. So we have a wonderful school, which is directed by Nadia Arambula. She's our creative director. Then we started a student advisory council, and that's, we started it, I think, about 6 years ago. We started partnering with students who are interested in arts and culture, and essentially they act as a council, and they provide, feedback to us, and we support them, we mentor them, and we work with them, and they get to exhibit their art work, or if they want to bring in musicians, we kind of work with them and help them to create a day filled with arts and music and with their peers. So this year we had 13 applications from San Diego Arts Academy, and I believe we had a couple of them from Canyon Crest. And recently I had a young lady interested to intern with us from Gower Art School, I think, locally. And then last but not the least, mariachi band. We've been trying to form a mariachi band, and I'm hoping we can realize that this year. We have had donations toward purchasing instruments, so we have money saved up to purchase instruments, so we can start with few kids as young as 7, so we can teach them, and it would be wonderful to have our own local mariachi band. It would be fabulous. Meanwhile, we've been engaged in many other programs. We have been sponsoring art nights from the very beginning. We sponsored the music for art nights. We've had sponsored performances locally by others in local arts organizations, especially nonprofits. So we kind of have expanded, and we try to do advocacy for whoever needs support. We have played that role. But our core values are personal development, empowerment, enhanced creativity, community building, and positive social changes. And this image, put it there on purpose, because this was a time when we were having a Passport to France event coming up. It was our Passport series. And it was a time when there was a bomb. They had an explosion in, I believe it was near Nice. Do you remember?
Truck that went up
Right.
down a whole bunch of people.
So we created, few of us got together, we created a banner, and at that evening, we had participants sign, and we shipped it to France, and the mayor of that town was so grateful, and we sent our love and prayers, and it was one of the things that it was spontaneous, it was amazing, and so we do engage in those kind of activities as a community. It brings everybody together. We have, obviously, in addition to the sculpture that we purchased, we did a fundraising, and we collected enough funds to purchase our concert grand piano, which is at the community center, and hopefully we will get to use it more. And so we will continue to do that as well. I know, Jennifer, you're probably excited about that, so hopefully you get to play it. So we respect all members of our volunteer organizations and the artists, as well as the arts organization in our community. We endeavor to make the arts fun and entertaining, as well as thought-provoking. and we will continue to believe in diversity, equity, inclusion, and transparency. That has been part of our vision all along, but now we're kind of having more conversations about it because obviously there is more awareness of it, more than ever. That was another thing that we did the beginning of COVID, having a daughter who is a nurse and also being in the community and witnessing what was going on with the hospital staff. We wanted to celebrate them, so we did a few banners and we presented it to Scripps, and they were just so excited, and we had these banners up, and the whole community enjoyed it. We thanked the first responders. So again, we want to be inclusive, impactful, and relevant through programs which support the artists and existing community arts program through funding and promotion instead of as mainly an event-based oriented organization. And that's where is the key, that's where we're shifting. So rather than being totally events-based, we're going to be more focused in funding and advocacy and supporting and collaborating with others in the organization, again, so we can eliminate redundancy and duplications. That would be one of our tasks. Our objectives are obviously financial sustainability for EFA, support for the Arts Center at the Pacific View site. Obviously, we're going to be championing that. Hiring independent contractors and potentially staff for selective continuing essential programs. I'll put that there because, and I mentioned that to the boards because this year alone, I did a 1099s for 12 individuals. As a small nonprofit, I'm very proud of it that we were able to employ, even as a contractor, 12 individuals who contributed to the community and by being employed by us. And then promotions of all arts and culture events in Encinitas and North County. As you may know, we have been managing the calendar of arts and culture, and I think it's been embraced well by the community, and I think everybody likes it, and obviously the city has been supporting us in that, and we're grateful for that. So I put that partnership. We are focused on inclusive programs that will support individual artists, local arts organizations, and municipalities. Our approach to how we do our work and how we do it collaboratively with you is something that we are firmly committed to and will continue to enhance as we move forward in 2023. I wanted to make sure that this slide is in there because we continue to be committed to doing whatever we can to support you and to support the artists in the community. We may have to redefine how we do it at times, but we remain committed to it. So one thing before I open it up for question, one of the shifts we also made, given the changes and the fact that I personally was doing a lot of the work for Dia de los Muertos, which is our biggest event, we wanted to shift some of it, and so we had a lot of conversation with the Latino community. We planted the seed. EFA planted the seed. It brought it. It's been huge. It's been successful. We have celebrated our Latino neighbors. So I asked them, what do they want to do moving forward? How can they help us? How can they help me to manage this event and make it even bigger? And so after going back and forth, they elected to, we used to have it at the community center, Encinitas Community Center. So this year is going to be held at Miracosta College. So that's a major shift. It's amazing. It's very positive, simply because we get to keep it educational. We get to keep it for free. We don't get to gentrify it. They get to do it, and we bring 3 generations from elementary school to high school and college kids engaged in that, and they get to do it the way they like to do it with our support. We will be the sponsor, proud sponsor of that event. It be continue to be held in Encinitas at the campus. Lots of parking. Gabby was going to be here, and Beatrice, and unfortunately Gabby is sick, and she wanted to talk about it. So you know Miracosta College this campus has become the Hispanic Resource Institute. So this fits perfectly into that change. They have funding, and they want to take it over. The Hispanic community wants to do it. They want to do it, and it gives them the opportunity and gets the young ones engaged and be proud of their heritage. So I'm truly excited about it, and I think our board is excited, and I brought it up at the cultural tourism. Our mayor was very supportive. Everybody thought this was a perfect marriage, so we're delighted with that change. So I just want to put it out there, and we're grateful. We're truly honored to have had the partnership with the city for the last 9 years, because there's no way we could have done it without the city. It's just impossible. But I think it's time to shift some of that. So that's one of the biggest changes we have taken on. So with that, I'm opening it up for questions, if there is any.
Hi, Naeem. Thank you so much. I'm so glad about the change of location to Maricosta. I was at the inauguration of the farmers market there over the weekend, and it's a great
It's
spot
amazing.
to have a big event. And that vast parking lot where I only know it from trying to teach my daughter to drive there, but
It's a good place for that, yeah.
yeah, right. So I had a quick question. So you're talking about the sort of transitioning to fundraising. Is there a blueprint for that? Are you bringing sort of fundraising specialist aboard? Or?
Well, first of all, we are in the midst of conversation with the city. We've enjoyed our relationship, our contractual relationship with the city through the MOU, and we don't have any terms or anything with regards to Pacific View, and obviously we have time to work through it. So Travis and I and some of us are having that conversation, how that would look like. So I'm waiting for feedback from the city. So once we learn and how we can be engaged, then we can plan out the fundraising. Personally, I see a lot of opportunities for grants, because this is a very special program and the whole community is excited. So I think we can perhaps collaboratively write some nice grants. Chandra's sitting there. I'm looking at her. We could do a lot of local fundraising, be very creative about it, and engage the community in that. So once we have those terms worked out through the MOU, then we will, we will have more details, and hopefully we will plan and you be engaged in it at that point as well. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Anything else? Well, wishing you all the best. Welcome, and thank you for your service.
Thank
Okay.
you. All right, end of presentations. Oral communications, do we have any speakers tonight?
There are none.
And there are no changes to the agenda. Approval of the minutes. So Julie, would you remind them, for those who were not here for the last meeting, our new commissioners?
So if you listened or watched the meeting from last month's commission meeting, you would be allowed to vote. If not, you would need to abstain.
I would move to accept the minutes as presented.
I second the motion.
So we're going to take the vote orally. I think since Commissioner Abraham, you came in after we did roll call, your name's not showing up on the voting screen. So I'll just call your name and you can say if you vote in favor or abstain or not in support. Commissioner, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your last names correctly, Morakovitz? Oh, and then when you talk, just make sure you press the button on the microphone so it lights up green.
Abstain.
Thank you. Commissioner Kadakia?
I'll abstain.
Commissioner Campbell,
Abstain.
Commissioner Abraham,
In favor?
Commissioner Lees,
In favor?
Commissioner Hebert,
Abstain.
and Commissioner Fox.
In favor.
All right, let the record show it passes with 3 in favor and 4 abstentions.
Thank you. Moving into our action items, as this is the beginning of the new commission year, we need to have the commission elect by motion a chair and vice chair. Are there any motions? You can nominate another, you can nominate yourself. And we will do chair first.
I'd like to nominate James Hebert as the chair for the Arts Commission.
So then we get to ask James if he's willing to take the position, right?
Yes.
Oh, if you're asking, that's a yes.
Are there any other nominations?
All right, seeing as there are none, Commissioner Hebert, you are now chair of the commission.
Thank you.
All right.
So am I,
Next- Oh, next, we need to do vice chair.
okay.
So you're not in charge yet, I
I know,
guess.
that's my question.
I am happy to hand it over in just a moment. Are there any nominations for vice chair? You may nominate another, or you may nominate yourself.
I'd like to nominate Kathleen Lees.
I would like to make a motion to not have me do it, but I would like to have Katie Fox be our chair. This is my last year.
We're at vice chair. Vice chair.
Chair. This is my last year on the commission, and I think it would be a good experience for Katie if she feels like she has the time to put to it.
Thank you. Yeah, I would accept that.
Okay, good, thank you.
Are there any other nominations?
All right, seeing as there are none, Commissioner Fox, you have been appointed vice chair. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And at this point, as we now have a chair, I hand the agenda over to you, Commissioner Hebert.
Thank you. My badge is still shiny from being relatively new here myself, but so I've kind of observed Michael, who did a great job as the previous chair, and I hope I picked up something, but bear with me as I forge ahead because I'm pretty new to this. So we're moving on to item 8B. Is that correct?
Correct.
The meeting calendar. And I think, do we just need a motion to accept the meeting calendar?
Correct. So have you all had a chance to review the dates? The commission's regular meeting date is the first Monday of the month, because that is occasionally a holiday, specifically in January and September. There are some special meeting dates proposed, and this commission has historically taken either July or August off, with July, the first holiday, the first Monday in July often coinciding with that holiday weekend. Most recently, it has been July that has been dark. So if you've had a chance to review these dates, both the regular dates and the special meeting dates proposed to take place in those months with holidays, then you could make a motion and vote to accept this as your meeting calendar.
I would make a motion to accept the calendar as presented.
I will second the motion.
Okay.
I had a question. Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
What is a special meeting?
A special meeting happens when it is outside what the regular meeting schedule is. So if a meeting happens not on the regular first Monday of the month, And in this case, we have 2 on the proposed calendar in September and in January. And one of these dates, just to be sure you've noticed, is on a Tuesday evening.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, or can we move ahead to a vote on the meeting calendar?
Yes, and just for the record, when you use your microphone, if you could just say, Commissioner, what your last name is, so if I'm writing notes, I'll know who spoke up, since I don't know all your voices yet. All right, so I'll just go down the list. If you're in favor of the calendar as presented, Commissioner Marakovitz
Yes.
and Commissioner Kadakia,
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell, Commissioner Abraham,
Yes.
and Commissioner Lees, Commissioner Hebert,
Yes.
and Commissioner Fox.
Yes.
Let the record show it passes unanimously.
Okay, so we're moving on to 8C, Commission for the Arts Annual Work Plan. By the way, I wanted to say welcome to all the new commissioners. I don't know, I guess we don't really have a space on the agenda for introductions, but I'm sure we'll get to know each other as time progresses. So glad you're all here. And I don't know if we need any kind of prelude to talking about the work plan. It's, Colette, I don't know if that's something you want to go
Sure,
over.
sure. So for tonight, there is the approved work plan from 22-23. So as you look at some of the continuing items, and if there's anything to report on those that are going to carry forward, that you're going to recommend be carried forward into the 23-24 work plan, then you can identify those. I am asking that an ad hoc committee be assigned for the visual art drawing, because we do need that a little sooner than usual this year. And then point 3 would be to review any new work plan items for 23-24, and those are on the draft. And you can make any amendments or additions. Keeping in mind that all work plan items need to align with City Council priorities and the Cultural Arts Division projects and
Excuse me, so point of order, so we're going to move through the work plan that we're writing for 23-24.
correct.
Okay. At what point do we approve and discuss the completion of 22-23?
You finished that in February, at the February meeting. All of the work plan objectives were discussed.
Oh, I see. So what we have printed here is just what was
Correct.
put together after our comments. Because I
Correct.
would like to make one comment. It's some of it's written in a present tense, and I think all of it should be written in a past tense. Like the first one, it says, Commissioners Corrales, Smith, Lees were appointed to serve one-year terms. And it seems to me it should say served one-year terms.
We can certainly take that kind of language into consideration when we do outcomes.
Okay, that was, other than that,
at the end of
I
the year.
completely agree with it, but it just kept seeming to me like it jumped back and forth in tenses.
We can keep that in mind when
Okay,
you do your
thank you.
outcomes at the end of the year.
So just so, I'm sure, hopefully this is fairly self-evident, but the work plan is our blueprint for what we'll be working on during the year. And it's sort of a somewhat dynamic document, but it guides us in what we talk about at the meetings and what we work on outside the meetings. So
That's what the city council approves for us to do.
right, good point. As Kathleen said, it's what the city council approves for us to work on. So, can we go ahead and dive into the from the top of the work plan? And
Sure, and just if we can really focus on what those work plan goals are, and aside from the visual art jurying committee, which we do need to have, I'm hoping that we can really just more focus on the goals and not focus on assigning the ad hocs tonight.
Okay, all right.
And that'll give the new commissioners some time to get an understanding of what they are, and it's important for all of you to be involved.
Right, okay. So we can kind of skip through some of the ad hoc items unless anyone has an objection, essentially.
I don't have an objection to skimming through, but I feel like we should start with number one and kind of move through it, just because there was a change on number one. I just wanted to discuss that, to hear about that.
Because EFA had announced a change in their mission, we were just kind of waiting to hear what that was going to be, so we knew how that would tie into the work plan.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're on number one, appointments. Is that where we are right now?
Correct.
Okay. And maybe this is one that we can decide on later. So I'm currently the liaison to the Cultural Tourism Committee, and it's a good position to learn about what's going on in the arts here, because it involves meetings with representatives from groups around the city. So I'm happy to, anyone wants to consider taking that on, I'm happy to hand over the reins on that. But we can push that to the next meeting if that's better.
Absolutely. And then Commissioner Lees is listed for the Community Grant Program. That was an appointment made ahead of the March 14th panelist review coming up.
Okay, so item number 2, research funding opportunities to support city arts programs and events.
So all the ones highlighted in yellow are new to be considered and determined whether you'd like to have those added on to your 23-24 work plan.
Okay, and that one was on our previous work plan, I think. Was that held over? No? Okay.
No, this is a new one.
Okay. Well, I feel as though that's a pretty key part of our mission, or it's worth considering making it officially a key part of our mission. I don't know if there was any discussion about how we feel about taking on that role, or including that role in our work plan.
I have a question about that. Is it going to be possible to work with, will the ad hoc be able to work with city staff on the information they have and the resources they would have about grants, databases and so forth?
Yes.
That's good.
And are we appointing, is this an ad hoc, or this is a commission, full commission goal? Just so I'm clear on that.
So just as a reminder, tonight we're kind of doing a brainstorm of what you would like to see on your work plan for this year. Obviously, most of these can either be the full commission or it can be an ad hoc. If it's the full commission, it really needs to be independent research where people come back to report that. Because remember, we can't violate Brown Act by convening without a public meeting, unless we did a public meeting for every single time we were looking at grants. So if they wanted it to be a smaller ad hoc group, then those 3 members or 2 members, whatever it is, can work together as a group. But if it is a full commission work plan item, then it needs to be independent of each commissioner to do some research on that.
Okay.
So you can determine that.
In order, if it's something that the full commission wants to be kept aware of, then we need to have an ad hoc committee for it. And then at every one of our meetings, someone from that committee will report on the progress that the committee has made. Otherwise, something more like assisting at arts nights and things that we present, that we all obviously participate in that. So you don't need a report back from that because it's an event and you'll probably get a report anyway. But anything that we really want to keep track of as a commission, we should have an ad hoc appointment, ad hoc committee, so that there are specific people who are focused on that.
So that would be.
That's just my
Sure.
input.
So that would be, so the ad hocs work independent of the public meetings, and that's where it's just the 3 members, so that it's within compliance of the Brown Act. And if that ad hoc wanted to go and meet and brainstorm and develop ideas, then, as Kathleen's saying, it comes back to the full commission and reports on that progress. The other model is if within a public meeting, you all decide who's going to go independently work on things, then when you come back to the public meeting, you can report on your progress.
It seems to me that there's an opportunity, and correct me if I'm wrong, for both of those things to be happening.
Correct.
So my experience thus far on the commission is that ad hocs it's a great way to divvy up the work so that actual work can get done. But it also poses, sometimes not it poses an opportunity in a way for then 3 people to be very focused on something and the rest of the commission to not have given it as great of input or of thought. And so I think there's an opportunity to use the ad hocs so that work can be done on a deep level and still bring it back to the commission and have the monthly reports be somewhat robust so that everyone can participate to move it forward step by step, rather than having the ad hocs work for months at a time, a little bit as though behind closed doors.
And that ultimately is a decision that you will have the time to make. So tonight, if conceptually that was a goal that you wanted to be on your work plan, you could make that decision. And then once approved by City Council, you can determine which model or both you'd like.
So we'd put it on the work plan to define the work of the ad hoc and individual members, or?
Okay.
So just for clarification, the ad hoc can work. The ad hoc can work as a small group outside of this meeting. And people can also work independently if they want to go out and look for grant, even if they're not part of the grant or the ad hoc. Once we formulate 4 or more commissioners on an item, then it needs to be done in a public setting, so we can talk about it here. So the ad hoc could come back and start talking about it, and then Katie, you could say, I also found this other grant. Maybe you should explore that as well, but that has to be done at a public, open meeting like this. Yep.
Yeah.
And then in terms of, so continuing items have already been approved on the prior year's work plan by City Council. Anything new, Council has not yet authorized. I have that tentatively scheduled to go before Council for approval on April 26th, assuming you all are in agreement at your April meeting as to what your work plan goals will be, proposed work plan goals are.
So bringing it back to number 2, I think having a researching funding seems like a very relevant thing to be working on.
Yeah, and we don't need to make a motion, right? We're just building this
Not on
by agreement.
No, not on individual ones. So at this point, you're deciding before this can go to council for their approval, you will have to vote on the entire document, not line by line.
Okay.
Does anyone disagree?
Okay. Yeah, it does seem as though we're in agreement, so maybe we can leave that on and make the decision about the ad hoc at the next meeting or
Or
just gotta
after
move
council
along.
has approved it.
Right, okay. But we will keep that on there. And then move on to number 3, assist Encinitas Friends of the Arts with fundraising activities and programs. Certainly in favor of that. I think that's been a longstanding part of the work plan. I don't know if anybody.
I agree, and for the new people on our commission, the reason we haven't addressed funding and research and getting grants and that sort of thing before is because until Pacific View was actually going to be constructed into a building we could use, there wasn't an opportunity to go after grants. So that's why this is a new focus for us, is to go after grants. And it's also, the EFA, Encinitas Friends of the Arts, have been working on programming and everything, but now that Pacific View is actually physically up there on the hill, getting constructed as we speak, much to great joy and excitement by all of us, we need to start raising money to pay for it. So that's why our focus has changed.
And I will add, as a commission, we can decide how we want to advise council to go about that. So how, we form an ad hoc, and then how we decide to support investigating funding is up to us.
Mhm.
Okay, so it sounds as though we're good on number 3.
I have a question, actually. Excuse me, I'm sorry, came into the meeting late, so I didn't hear everything that Naomi was saying, but previously, we've had members of the commission on the board of EFA, and is that going to continue, or?
So we anticipate that will happen. We are going to be sitting down with Naomi this month to work through a new MOU with EFA. So we'll be discussing if that's still a desire of the EFA group to have a full 3-member, or 3 members from this commission sit on their board. So we'll be exploring that, and we'll have that information hopefully by the next meeting.
Mhm, so that will have to be added to the work plan then?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, unless there are any other comments or questions on that, we'll move on to number 4. This is city staff with Americans for the Arts, Arts and Economic Prosperity Report. And for those who don't know, this is a survey that's we've been helping administer since late last year, I think, at different cultural events. And it's a way to find out how people in the community are spending money on the arts in order to guide the arts mission in Encinitas and hopefully attract more funding. I actually have copies of it here if anybody's interested. I was at the Art Night event on Saturday helping pass out some of the surveys, and people were receptive to it. So, but that ends in May. The deadline was pushed up, but it ends
It was.
in
It
May.
was, the original deadline was April 30, and Americans for the Arts announced a 1-month extension, and that there would not be any others. So we can definitely look forward to May 31st being the conclusion of the audience intercept surveys.
Okay, so that's something we can keep on the work plan, even though it'll expire essentially in a couple of months.
Correct.
We just want to make sure to keep focusing on it. Okay. Yeah, I would hate to leave that off in midstream since we've been working on it for a while now. So I'd certainly be in favor of keeping that on the work plan, unless there are any objections or no. Okay. All right. So number 5, present an updated draft arts master plan for city council consideration.
And that one, I apologize, is meant to be highlighted. Something has happened to that in the shifting over.
I think that is something we've had a lot of discussion about, right? It's been in the works for predating my time here. And I don't know if Kathleen or Irene might be able to update us on.
Well, I don't have a copy of it, but the last year they did come up, probably says here, they did come up with a draft. Excuse my voice. They came up with a draft, and it is not something that we as a commission can do, is create a whole new draft for the master arts plan. That's like a whole citywide thing. So
So-
the city council has to determine whether or not they're going to support that happening next year, correct?
Well, we have
No,
put.
why
we've-
don't you tell them, Colette? You know more of what you're talking about than I do.
Well, so we've put in as a budget request item to have the money to hire a consultant to develop the arts master plan. And so that's why it's written that way, that it's subject to the approval of the 23-24 budget.
And maybe we should mention that Draft has been worked on by the commission, I think, over 4 years or maybe longer.
That sounds about right. But it, because of some of the things, so much changed along the way. So that's how the conclusion was reached, that doing it with the assistance of a consultant who specializes in that was the route to take. So we'll know more when the budget is adopted.
I guess my only question is, so do we need to put a kind of a target date on when that's presented to?
So this item would probably no longer be an Arts Commission work plan item. It has been brought forward by staff as a decision package in the budget process, so we're waiting that process. The commission has done a really good job of putting together the elements of what they'd like to see in that, so that work has all been done. So the next step would be to hire a consultant, and then the consultant would do public outreach and help to develop an actual master plan.
Okay.
So our work plan would probably read something more like assist consultant in gathering the information or something like that.
Potentially, yeah, pending the budget outcome.
Right, because we're not going to be in charge of it.
Right.
No, good.
Okay. So this sounds like something we need to revisit when we know a little more about what the next step is. So
Right, once we
Yeah.
know about the budget.
yeah, okay. Okay, good. So I guess we'll move on to number 6, assist with the promotion of city arts and culture events. That seems like kind of a slam dunk, but I guess how we go about that can take a lot of different forms. But as I understand it, that's part of our mission of getting out in the community or letting people know what's going on and going to the events when possible. So, yeah, I don't have any objections to that. All right, and then so we're on number 7. Support the public art policy. I don't know if you need me to read all this, but specific focus includes, but is not limited to, city-funded projects, sculpture installation program, El Portal Undercrossing, Olympus Park, and privately funded projects and donations. So in the previous work plan, we had specific commissioners assigned to some of these tasks. And we'll probably need to revisit and update those, depending on what people's interests are, if we're going to continue with these items. But I guess the question might be whether there are other items we need to add to this.
Not necessarily. More, is this a continuing area of interest for the commission to carry forward into the next work plan?
Okay. Okay, yeah. I guess what I would say is maybe the commissioners could look at this list and think about whether there are particular items that you might want to be involved in. I think Kathleen and I have been on the Olympus Park ad hoc, or we've been the ones trying to do some research on that, on grant funding. The El Portal undercrossing is well into its creation phase, but that's an important item. So
The commission will have an opportunity with that one as well. And as, you know, you can go through here and make some determinations about which items are going to be on your work plan, and then that'll give both existing and new, or previous and new commissioners an opportunity to really, like you say, give some thought to those areas of interest, and then have more of that ad hoc conversation at your April meeting.
okay, yeah. So maybe we could talk a little bit about in terms of, say, the sculpture installation program. I think there are, 5 pads, sculpture
Correct.
pads?
There is one in each of the neighborhoods of Encinitas, and that application is going to be rewritten to be more accessible, easier for an artist to fill out, and that is a project that we're starting to work on this month and hope to have more information for you at the April meeting.
Okay, great. And then the El Portal undercrossing at near Palecki Central School. The students there, I think the teacher, Mr. Wright from SDA, is kind of leading that. He's a really inspirational artist, and he's leading that effort to have school kids help create the mosaic, I believe it is, for that undercrossing. So that's the kind of the thumbnail on that. And Olympus Park is the newish park. Already has a little bit of public art, I think, but there's opportunity there as well.
There could be some opportunities. It would definitely need to have a funding source before that could be entertained.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, in past meetings, we've talked for the sculpture installation as far as like an ad hoc potentially coming up with a list of artists to reach out to specifically. We've talked, I remember Jeff mentioned the tree.
Yeah.
I forget the actual program, the sculptural program all throughout San Diego with public sculptures that artists were put out on sidewalks and.
Well, so when that when that call to artists becomes available, really distribute it far and wide to any artist who would be interested in applying. So we definitely want that to become as public and well distributed as possible.
Yeah, so again, I guess we can circle back to this and sort of attach some names to some of these. I don't know if there are any also that we need to talk about adding. I don't know if you mentioned something about that there are additional items or.
Not at this time.
Okay.
I mean, obviously things can come up. That one item, the donated piece, had come up. So
Right.
for now, these are the these are the known projects.
Got it. Okay. Okay, great. So we'll get back to that one. Number 8, assist with Art Night Encinitas. And as I understand it, that's also been a kind of a long-standing tradition for the commissioners to try to be a part of Art Night. And it's still, I think, four times a year.
It recently, so starting in 2023, it is 4 times a year. Previously, it had been 6 times a year. And for a number of reasons, it was changed. And as you said, last Saturday was the first one for 2023, incredibly successful. And that is in part to the commission's contributions. We have historically had an ad hoc who has been involved in helping to coordinate programming, music, brainstorming on ideas and ways to have the event be very engaging for the public. And then, of course, volunteering. I welcome all of you. If you would like to come, I have options for volunteering opportunities. So that is only getting better and better. It was really a wonderful event on Saturday.
Yeah, so much going on. I wish I could have caught more of it. I was mostly at one venue, and there were venues all over the city, and people were excited to be there. And there's music and art demonstrations and art on display being exhibited. So
I was at the library, and we had a poetry workshop. The poetry workshop leader took the people taking the workshop into the art display in the community room. And they all walked around and looked at the art. Then they went into their workshop. They had their workshop, and they all wrote poetry about the art that they had seen. And then they came out, and they each read their poems in the room surrounded by the art. It was just a wonderful experience by everybody. And the artist who had created all of this art was just over the moon to have that kind of input come back to her. And I just thought that was so easy. Well, and maybe it wasn't easy to pull off, but it just was so smooth and simple and not intrusive. I doubt if it cost very much money, but it just so completely served everyone who was part of it. It was like the perfect event. Of course, I always think that any kind of art show is a perfect event to go to anyway, but.
It was very
We had
well
little
received.
We had some
Yeah.
little kids, which you don't usually see too many little kids, but it was fun. Oh, and then there was the sculptor who was working there, actually creating a sculpted head with the artist. So it was lots of really good, interesting stuff. I think we need some more advertising.
I would direct you back to
Yeah, right.
item number 6 on your
Right.
proposed work plan for 23-24.
I think, did we have I don't know if we're taking questions, Jess?
No.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I agree. It was, just a lot going on. It makes you appreciate the vibrancy of the arts community here.
I was wondering if I can say that. I thought that it was very lovely the other day, and I think that it's great to have that interaction of the audience, like what you were just saying, and like in the workshop that was going on here too, instead of like sitting and watching somebody speak or demonstrate. It's like you're part of the creation, and that was really neat. I think that, and along the lines of what you said about promotion, I think that it would be nice to see more youth, and if there was some way we can work on getting the youth out, more youth, and having them present or doing.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. It's that's probably an area that we could explore and encourage more. Yeah. Were you at City Hall? Were you here for one of the demonstrations? Or?
Yeah, we just kind of went from one to another.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, we got our exercise in.
That's great. So yeah, I think that stays, I believe. So we'll move on. Oh, go ahead.
Quick question. So the thing that I printed out that Colette sent had a number 7, which we didn't talk about. Research the feasibility of a program of hosted artist homestays. That was removed. Is it?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I was on the ad hoc last work plan for that, and with former Commissioner Redlitz, and he moved to table that because kind of coming out of the pandemic, it was difficult it was just a tall order to kind of try to convince people to do these stays quite yet. But that's not to say that we can't revisit that. I mean, that was a few months ago, but if we feel as though people will be more receptive now to doing that, I understand that was a pretty robust and important program in the past, and I think Jeffrey, who was formerly on the commission, was involved in helping run that program, but certainly open to consideration of adding that back in if I don't know if that's something that you individually are interested in.
No, I was
working
just
on
going through my information here, and I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure
I
we.
think there's two, so there's the previous year's work plan was an attachment, and then there's the present one that we're,
I see.
as a draft.
I see.
The draft we can talk about putting anything on there. The highlighted ones come from previous meetings that we had all discussed that we wanted to add on to this year's work plan. But yeah, that was something from the previous that then I think everyone had,
Removed.
yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
Mhm.
But we can sort of, oh, go ahead.
So one point I wanted to make, and we talked about this a little bit in the orientations, is remember when you're thinking about these work plan items, you want to make sure that you're going to have some items that you can actually deliver on. So what exactly, as part of that work plan item, are you going to deliver on by the end of this term? Because we did have a couple of different work plan items on the last one that we didn't simply come to any resolute on any outcomes. So, as you're thinking about these things, make sure that they're things that we can obtain some positive outcomes on by the end of this term. So that's the one thing that I would challenge the commission on.
The term, Travis, being
Through February.
through February, for the year. Okay.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a good reminder that we should try to focus on the specific and the attainable. So, all right. So, moving on to number 9, serve on the visual art selection panel for art exhibitions in the civic arts spaces.
So this is one I am asking you to form an ad hoc on, should you so decide, because we generally only have one call for art for each exhibition year. And for the 2023 exhibitions, we did not get enough three-dimensional applications. So we've filled the exhibitions through the first part of the year and done a second call specifically for 3D exhibitions. It is open through April 3rd, so please continue to share that widely with three-dimensional artists. And then we're going to need to have a jurying panel, and the 2 potential dates are April 24th or 27th. I haven't looked at times on that yet. I just know that it needs to be on one of those 2 dates. So in terms of thinking of who would be on that ad hoc, it would be those who would be interested in that, and in this case, specifically available on April 24th or 27th.
So just to clarify, you would prefer that we choose that tonight, ideally?
For
Yeah.
this one,
Okay.
yes, please.
Yeah. Well, we'll put that out there then. Are there people who are interested in?
I'd be interested.
Great.
I'm not going to be here those dates, otherwise I would be delighted. So,
And ideally 3 people on the,
No more than 3.
Is the timing during the workday or is it at night?
I can schedule it, I have some latitude, but it's not at night. I can have it be later in the day. So I have, kind of depending upon everyone's availability, it's 3 commissioners and 2 professionals from the arts community. And I do the when's everybody available time and choose a time that is best. So we've had it in the morning, we've had it in the late afternoon. And it usually is about, well, when we do the full year, it's usually about 2.5, 3 hours. This one I anticipate being much shorter because it's I don't know yet, depending upon how many applications we get.
But you're also only covering 2 shows,
Well, all applications need to be juried.
right? But you only are looking for art for the last 2 art nights, right?
Correct, but you'll still need to jury all of the
Oh,
applications.
of course.
okay, so we have Commissioner Campbell, is that right? And Commissioner Fox, and did I miss anybody? Are we at 2?
I think it's going to depend on the time for me, but, and the length of the time that's needed. But
Yeah, it can be as much as 2.5, 3 hours, depending upon how many applications. Given that it is limited to only three-dimensional art and based on historical numbers of those applications that have come in, my guess is that it'll be closer to maybe an hour and a half. But that is completely dependent upon how many applications are received.
Can you clarify the jurying, the term jurying? I mean, when I think of jurying, I think of when I was in school myself, and I had juries where I performed and I was evaluated. Is that?
It's probably very similar. So there is criteria, and the panelists review all of the work and make determinations as to which pieces fit and that they would recommend for inclusion, possible inclusion in a future exhibition.
This is, I know previously the commissioners who were jurying were given JPEGs ahead of time to review the artists' submissions. And then you come together as a complete jury and discuss the submissions. So a lot of the work, can be done ahead of time in terms of evaluating, and that, is on your own time.
And that continues to happen. Once the date closes, the applications will go to that jurying panel, and I try and make sure you've got 2 weeks so that you can fit that in your schedule to thoughtfully go through, make notes, give thoughts, and then when you come together as a group, that's when you discuss things and other items come up, and as a group, you make a recommendation as to which ones are juried in.
So I can do in October, but I cannot do in April. I don't know how that works, but you can put my name down for October.
Okay, we can have an ad hoc for April and an ad hoc for October. So for now, I really just need, because this will close, and then I'll prepare everything and send it off. And it's okay if there's only 2 of you available. That's okay.
I can do it in April, but I would rather have someone else, one of the new commissioners, do it.
You can have a separate ad hoc for the October one.
Okay.
I can do it. Can do it in October, as far as I know, right now. So, but not in April.
And I'd like to do both, but I'm not,
Yeah,
committed. I don't.
Sure.
What's the date in October?
It hasn't been determined yet. So for now, it's really just April that I'm very anxious to make sure I've got secured. Was that
So we can do October later.
I will have a better idea when you look at the schedule in April.
So I volunteer to do it in April if nobody else is available.
All right, so I have Commissioners Fox, Campbell, and Lees, is that correct? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to all of you.
I'll reach out to you separately and coordinate what timing is best in common for all of your schedules.
Thank you.
Join the Arts Commission, you jump right into things here, so.
Good job.
I appreciate that.
So we'll move on to number 10, support existing city performing arts programs and research feasibility of new offerings. I've been on the ad hoc for that this past term, just kind of personally more my background. That's one that I gather we don't need to decide necessarily tonight, but
If there's any, discussion that you want to have amongst the commission as to whether this might or might not continue on to the work plan.
okay. I'll just say I found it valuable to be a part of that process and to have meetings and get up to speed outside the commission meetings on what is coming up. There's a lot of performing arts going on between the music at the library and the summer festival, and also I'm trying to remember if part of the purview of the ad hoc is talking about performing arts instruction going into Pacific View, or is that separate item, Pacific View specific?
Separate item, but being involved in making recommendations and sharing the RFP with potential teaching artists who would be interested.
Mm-hmm. Right, okay.
That falls under the arts education, but yes.
Yeah, okay. Any thoughts on whether we're in favor of continuing that, having that be part of our work plan?
I'm interested in that.
Okay, great.
And, yeah, I'd be curious to find out your background in the performing arts and.
So I formerly, in my former life, as a journalist, I was the chief theater critic at the Union Tribune for about 12 years, and now somehow I'm a playwright. I guess I just had my first play, a couple readings of my first play. So that's, that's kind of where I come from. I wrote about the arts in general at the Union Tribune, and then theater specifically for quite a while. So. And I think I don't know if there are other people who have a particular interest in performing arts. I'm glad is that part of your?
Yeah, so when I was looking at number 10 earlier, that piqued my interest about developing, when I was thinking about other art programs for citizens to partake in. And that's interesting. You said like theater, like maybe some kind of, some theater groups or
Right.
some organizations of performing groups, where I grew up in Pennsylvania, where there's like they've established what they call what it's called a Northern Tier Orchestra, and it encompasses like a little geographic area of Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey. It's just kind of like this regional thing, and I think that would be kind of nice to have something up in North County.
Well, I think there's a lot of room to talk about ideas, although my understanding, I don't know if this is the time to bring it up, but we are not really introducing new initiatives because of the Pacific View project, because that's going to be taking up so much of our time and our mission. But certainly performing arts, the aspect of performing arts that would fit in with what will happen at Pacific View, mostly instructional, educational programs. I think, yeah.
And also, because we have the Steinway D at the community center, having there be programming that involves the piano that's not necessarily a piano concert. For instance, we have the Nutcracker in December, and it's got live music. This most recent one, it was a pianist, a cellist, a violinist, and a bandurist. So having, whether it's dance or theater, or we had a choir, so it's kind of thinking about what sort of performing arts might complement use of that piano in such a large space.
I think since the main thrust of our conversation is deciding the items that we want to put attention to moving forward, I mean, the performing arts is such a huge part, I'd say absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess, so if you're interested, I mean, we can, I'm interested in returning as part of the ad hoc, but I don't want to, push, I don't want to make an opportunity not available to somebody else, so. But I guess we have two takers, and.
Well, I think we're not really assigning people to the ad hocs tonight.
Right, but if that's something that you're really passionate about, then when we meet in April, that might be one you.
Yeah, this is like a good orientation.
Exactly. All right.
Okay, great.
Ready to go on?
Yeah.
All right, so these 11, 12, 13, 14 are new ones based on prior conversations and interest expressed.
Okay, so we're on number 11, develop mission and vision statements for use in fundraising and promotion of the new Pacific View Arts Center. And just so I know, because I had a family emergency, couldn't be at the last meeting. Was this language developed partly during the last meeting? Or is
No, the
this-
language has not been developed.
Okay.
It's something that would be developed with the assistance of a consultant at a future meeting.
Okay.
Do you mean the language that you read here?
Yeah, I was
Oh,
talking
I'm
more about the
sorry.
item
I thought you meant the
language.
mission and vision statement. Got it. Yes.
I wasn't at the meeting, but I did listen into the whole meeting. And there was some language from a previous ad hoc that Irene, myself, and Michael were part of that generated conversation about Pacific View that was related to the work of that ad hoc in the past. And so from there, we put together, I can't remember if it's that exact language, but that's the seed of some of these ideas, and then they were presented at the last meeting, and I think there was some conversation about them.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. Any thoughts on this item?
So is that going to be done with the consultant that's going to come in, the number 11? That is going to, okay.
I think that this is our opportunity. We have been looking for ways that we could contribute to Pacific View, and so much of it was what's possible and where's the money, and there's been so many hard decisions that had to be made over our head, and now we're getting to the part that's actually going to make that building an art center and a community resource. And so now I'm really grateful for the Arts Commission to have an opportunity to participate. So I think this is vital. Number 11 is vital for us to be part of.
Yeah.
And that would go for 12 as well. And 13 is already underway with the three pallets that have been made public, sort of, and we can do voting on, so.
I had one question. So in number 11, the kind of more in-depth language talks about it says commissioners will work with a consultant to develop mission and vision statements, as opposed to the other ones that say ad hoc. But has that been, is that something we're deciding still whether that's going to be an ad hoc or a kind of a full?
So because the thought is that this is going to be done during a public meeting, all of you may contribute to that because it is done at one of your meetings. So that is the current plan, is that it would involve all of you, possibly in April, but in a meeting soon. We're
Okay.
working on the logistics still.
And Colette, you had mentioned that city staff has it's on your agenda to put together a vision statement for Pacific View, is that correct?
To have that kind of information prepared for Pacific View, definitely.
Okay. So this would be a way of, in your mind, us helping to advise on that work, or?
So
No, what our intentions are on the mission and vision statement is that we do it in a public setting. So what we will likely do is bring it to this commission at a regular meeting. We will convene the Commission for the Arts. We will break for a workshop that will also involve any community members who want to participate, and we'll have a facilitator that will help us get to a mission and vision statement.
Okay.
but with all of you.
Okay. And you said the timing, you're looking at April?
Well, we're
possibly,
looking
or-
at soon. There's logistical issues in coordination and so forth that need to happen. So we're
Right.
hopeful that we can make that happen at a meeting very soon.
Okay, great. Well, that seems, it seems as though it's worth moving ahead with in its current form. It seems as though it's something that we'll be fine tuning once we have a chance to talk it with and hear from the consultant and get more information on that. So.
Sorry, I do have a question why the timeframe is only April and May, just because that item is only pertaining, that seems like that would be one part of the commission wanting to have that on their work plan for the year.
Well, once it's formed, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't need, once it's complete, it's complete. And at the time this was generated, that feels like it could be the time frame. It may need to shift depending upon consultants' availability and other items on the agenda. But it is something that once you do a mission and vision, you do the work, and then you have your mission and vision statement.
So that would happen, that would be completed actually during that meeting?
Correct.
There would be no further.
Meeting or
Okay.
meetings, depending upon how that, but yes, it's going to happen, and then you'll complete it.
Okay.
Isn't that information that the people doing fundraisings pretty much need to have to even write a grant? Is what's the mission statement?
It's often something very important to that process, yes.
It helps clarify what the grant application is for.
It is one of the
That's why
elements,
it's so
absolutely.
important to have it written specifically.
Okay, well, I think we're okay to move ahead. So number 12, advise on branding for the new Pacific View Arts Center. And that would be an ad hoc. So is that in conjunction with the consultants in that case, or that's strictly?
No, that's not, and there's a lot of limitations within that because the city already has a brand style guide, so anything with that needs to work within those parameters. So I put down my best guess for when we might start working on that, and that is something that is best done with an ad hoc. And
Okay.
obviously that comes back to the full commission where you can have more discussion.
Okay. So would that be a case where the city staff would be coming up with, for example, a logo for the ad hoc to weigh in on, or?
If there is one,
According-
right, so items, generating what kind of items need to be produced, and then working with the ad hoc, depending upon what it is, on advisory, and then ultimately it can come back to the full commission for further input and recommendations.
Okay, all right.
Is it possible to get us the brand style guide so that we can have a look at that?
Sure.
That'd be good.
Do other commissioners?
Are you looking for the commissioners to be mocking up these logos? No, just voting on them,
Advising.
advising. So who will be mocking the logos up?
We're kind of getting ahead, we're kind of going a little too deep. I don't have all of that information just yet, so conceptually, is this an item that the commission would like to have on their work plan? We know that these are things that are going to be needed, but the implementation and the hows and the wheres we haven't gotten to that place yet.
Okay, so we can revisit that and talk about who wants to be part of that ad hoc as we move forward. So number 13, recommend the exterior color palette for the new Pacific View Arts Center. And you may know that there's that's been put out in the public already, and at the Art Night events, there was a QR code you could scan in to give your opinion on that. So the displays were really nice to see at the event, and people were really interested in looking at those. And just out of curiosity, do you know how much response there's been? Has there been
I
any?
don't have any current data with me to share. At your April 3rd meeting, you will have the information. The survey does close on March 31st, and you'll all be reviewing that to make a recommendation.
Okay. So that seems like a process that's well underway, obviously, and I guess we will I mean, it makes sense to me to have that be a part of our process. It's an important part of what's going to be happening with Pacific View and the look of the place. So I look forward to hearing what people decide, what the sentiment of the public is. But the palettes were really very, I like seeing a little bit of contrast among them, and I'm curious to see what people decide on.
I was curious how it's being advertised for the citizens to survey that. Is it in the papers, or for like an ordinary person, it'd be like, who might not know?
So there's a number of ways. In addition to being public at Art Night, it has been, the link to an announcement of the survey has been sent to all the arts organizations within Encinitas and to our list of artists. It was sent to all of you to share widely among those interested in the Encinitas arts community. It is being mailed to the residents in the immediate vicinity of the Pacific View site. It will be included in digital newsletters with links to both be able to view the visuals of each of the options, some details, and then the link to the survey, and included in city social media, and it's on the city website and in the newsletters. I think I hit all the points.
How about the Encinitas Advocate and the Coast News? the local
We would love to
papers?
have them pick that up. Please feel free to reach out to them and share that and advocate for their publicizing of it.
The city can't do that?
I only have so many resources. I've sent it out to them, but if you want to
Oh,
follow
good,
up,
okay, okay.
you can certainly, again, I would refer you to item number 6 on your
Okay.
proposed work plan.
So, but, I mean, when you send something like that out, you have to have a lot of technical information. All we have to do is ask them to please give it some attention.
They have the information's gone out, on that full list, but most news organizations receive a great number of requests for publicity. So we just don't have the capacity to follow up on every single one of them, which is where you all come in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
They
can
do
vouch
have
for
the
that.
information, that's what's important.
Yes.
It is a good reminder that we can play a role in getting the word out there on that, and a reminder to myself, because I need to
Right.
work on that a little bit too, but yeah.
That combined with, as we introduce this meeting to my tiny but mighty arts division team of 2.75 people.
Right. Very mighty. Okay, so number 14, research the feasibility of future artist residency programs at Pacific View. That's another ad hoc we'll be putting together. I feel as though that's fairly self-explanatory and would seem to be a really good feature of that site. I know that, for example, Lux, now ICA, has had a long-term artist residency program that has really been successful. So I like that model.
And it can take different forms. This was something that was identified very early on in the brainstorming session of the concept of having residency within the different genres, not just within visual art, but within performing, within literary, and engaging artists and how that might look. It will not be part of phase 1. We're going to get an empty building, we're going to get it up and running, but looking at, as part of researching this feasibility, where does it make sense? Funding is a huge part of this. So how might that work, and where might funding come from
Right.
to support it?
Yeah. Is there, not to get ahead of ourselves, but is there a possibility for city funding in part for that, or?
There is no funding identified for it right now because we're not at that phase. So
Right,
at this,
okay.
it's researching,
Yeah.
looking at what it might cost, how other models have successfully functioned. So not just cost, but funding sources, successful ways of going about it, partnerships. This, at the research phase, you're going to gather, should you choose to add this onto your work plan, you can gather a lot of information and be able to bring that back and share recommendations on how it might look at Pacific View.
Okay. Right, yeah. Does anybody have any comments or objections to moving forward with that on the work plan, or? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we'll stick with that one, and number 15, support existing city arts education programs and direct potential arts instructors to city RFPs for arts program instruction.
And that RFP is going to be revised, and I hope to have that ready for you in the next couple of months, probably.
Okay. And just to clarify, so is that item, is this, are these education programs outside of Pacific View, or is that?
So what we're hoping to do, what our plan is to start developing programming that fits within the zoning and permitted uses at Pacific View at existing city sites. So possibly the
Oh, that's right.
library or the
Okay.
community center, the Scout House, depending upon what the program is suited to. And get them up and going, get them developed. And so then when Pacific View is open and operational, we can move those programs over. It's a lot easier to do something like that than to go from 0 to 60.
Right, okay. And is this, are we looking at an ad hoc for this as well? It doesn't mention specifically.
For this, really, it's, once that is out and about, and as you each think of, I think that this teaching artist would be very good for this that has been identified as a program of interest. It's sharing that RFP and recommending the teaching artist apply.
Got it, okay.
So in that case, it can't, all of you can. Now, you can't violate the Brown Act by being together and chatting with one another outside of a public meeting to say who you had in mind. But just in general, independently, if you think of someone that you feel would be a good fit, you can each send out these applications and encourage them to apply.
Got it, okay.
One step further, and you can think about this maybe between this meeting and the next meeting, is there is occasion where, we get, we put out a call for instructors, and we get a number of instructors who want to teach the same thing. Well, if we get like 10 people who want to all teach watercolor, we may not have the capacity to have all 10 teachers teach watercolor at the center. So we may need to call on the commissioners to create an ad hoc group that would evaluate the different proposals that come in to say, hey, we could take 4 instructors for watercolor, and maybe one instructor wants to teach seniors and one instructor wants to teach youth. We may call on the commissioners to look at that. So we could go one step further on this and say also to have a selection committee or a selection ad hoc in the event that we had multiple individuals who'd like to teach a specific course.
So that would be something that we would revisit if that came up, essentially.
Or we could add that to this item.
Okay. Do we want to, my inclination is we'll leave the language as it is for now and come back to that, because we'll still need to, still need to think about what we want to do with that, so. All right.
And then these last 2 items are just routine that will happen as you near the end of your term. And it would be also all the items that end up on your approved work plan, you'll go through and share what the outcomes are, and that ends up going into the report to council for them to see what you've accomplished. So no need to do anything on these. They're just routine standing items.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone have anything that wasn't added that they want to talk about putting on the work plan?
Well, there was one item we had talked about, and I think Travis, you had suggested that this might already be available, and that was a very short handbook for new commission members. And I don't know if we need to put that on the work plan, or what your thoughts are on that.
So I think that that is something that we can work with the different commissioners on, like what they'd like to see. A commissioner handbook per se really does come from the city clerk's office, and we did supply a handbook to all the new commissioners. But if there's anything specific to the Arts Commission that you'd like us to explore, to put in, we can certainly take any comments from individual commissioners. And then, you know, as we get, if we get comments, a bunch of comments in, we could agendize this at a future meeting too. Unless you wanted to put this on a work plan to say, we'd also like to have a little, maybe one pager or a couple pages specific to arts commissioners, we could certainly do that either way.
Okay, well, maybe that would be appropriate to put that on. And that's exactly what I was thinking, just a couple of pages to explain the procedures a little bit.
Yeah, I'd be okay. I'd be open to that.
Okay.
Didn't you have something like that available at the little, for some reason, the word interrogation is coming up instead of the other word. That's more
Orientation?
appropriate.
Was it that bad for you, Kathleen?
No, actually, I thoroughly enjoyed myself.
No, we definitely did supply a lot of information at that, and we could formalize something and have an ad hoc look at it and see if they want to, you know, look through it and see if there's anything that they want to add. But yeah, it's definitely a good tool for new commissioners that are coming in, and something that we could use for future commission orientations.
The
I
challenge
spent my
is,
entire time thinking, boy, I sure wish they'd done this when I came on the commission.
right, it's just the work plan is your work,
Right.
not our work.
That's what I wondered. It seemed like something more that you might put together for us to review, right? So,
And attachment 3 is my work plan with 2.75 people.
right. Yeah. So with that in mind, I don't know. Does it feel? I'm not sure it entirely feels like something that should be in our work plan. Something we'd love to have access to or have.
And we want to
Kind of
make
a
sure
plan.
we're giving you all of the information that you need. So I want to make sure you hear that there's not pushback on giving you information. It's
Right.
just clarifying on, you can ask us for information
Right.
and we can get you that. But in terms of your work plan is commission work.
I think that idea was based in the sense of how do we become as robust of a commission as a body as possible. And so it wasn't so much about asking for specific information, although that may be elements of it, but more that everyone coming on, and even as a new cohesive group, that we are very clear about what our purpose is, what resources we have available to achieve those purposes, and so having that that felt like work that we could do ourselves, as far as for instance identifying people who new commissioners could have meetings with when they came on, and therefore, or just a list of people that say, hey, you might want to reach out to Naime, for instance. She's a big player that was something that obviously everyone can take their own initiative of, but it would be just a way to get on the same page. So I think that was what the idea was about. I think that could easily happen individually, and it seems to me that maybe having an ad hoc put together a one-pager rather than you having to field many different individual ideas coming at you for personally, I don't care which way it goes.
I just had a light bulb come on too. I remember something that we talked about in I think almost every orientation is one of the things that we can do a better job of when we're getting to an item is to remind the commission what the item is. So when we get to commissioner initiated item, what does that mean? And what process do we take to bring forward a commissioner initiated item? So we can do a better job of that, and we talked about that, how we can provide an explanation at each time we come to that item, just to remind the commissioner what that is. So I think that that's part of it as well. But we have no objection to you guys forming an ad hoc and creating a one-pager, totally fine. But I think it's twofold. It's doing that, but then also, like I said, reminding you of the item and saying, item 10 is commissioner-initiated item. This is what it means, and this is how you do it. Just at least for, a few meetings, just to get everybody on the same page about what that is.
And so you're feeling comfortable. And then really quickly, as a point of order, as we approach 7 o'clock, do you feel like we can accomplish the agenda before 7 p.m., or would you like to make a motion to extend?
Well, I think we're going to be cutting it a little close, right? You have the commission, the calendar items to talk about, and the Arts Division report. So my sense is we might need to make just to be safe, we might need to make a motion to go past 7 o'clock. So I'll make that motion.
So
Second it.
we need a motion on how long to extend. Do you want us to do
okay.
7:15, 7:30? What do you?
Yeah, I would make a motion to extend to 7:15. That works.
I second the motion.
Okay.
Okay, so then I will call roll if you're in favor of extending this meeting to 7:15. Commissioner Morakovitz,
Yes.
Commissioner Kadakia,
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell,
Okay.
Commissioner
Starving.
Abraham,
Wasn't ready for past 7, so.
Commissioner Lees,
Approve, yes.
Commissioner Hebert,
Aye.
and Commissioner Fox.
Yes.
All right, thank you. It passes unanimously.
We'll try to keep it faster than that, though, so. Just the one last, just to, I guess, circle back to this, I wonder if it would make sense for Commissioners Fox and Lee and Abraham, thank you, sorry, to kind of come up with some language that we could potentially add to the work plan. Would that be?
Sure.
And we could decide at the next meeting if that, yeah, appreciate that, okay.
I do have one other thing I'd like feedback about, which is we discussed, I think it'd be very beneficial to have more presentations come to each meeting. So that's something that we can all suggest individually, but Colette and Travis had also said other commissions do have ad hoc groups that focus solely on that, of looking at a year's calendar and basically booking, coordinating presentations for each meeting. So I'm just curious what everyone thinks is the best way to go about that.
So encouraging more presentations.
Yeah, for our work plan, there's a myriad people, experts who we could have come in and present their knowledge to both inform the public and ourselves, so that we can better advise on these topics.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly open to that idea. Is that, so the work plan component of that would be having an ad hoc that would kind of research or invite people to come?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think the other way of doing it is that different ad hocs at part of their monthly work could be looking into people who would be relevant presenters. Sorry. And so each ad hoc could be responsible for bringing in their own people to make presentations.
But just to clarify, you're talking about presentations to the full commission, not just
Such as the EFA that happened
Okay.
tonight.
Are there any restrictions or anything we should know about in terms of that? Or-
So we have our different commissions that we have under our jurisdiction here in Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts do have an ad hoc committee that identifies speakers for their different meetings that they hold on arts, or in this case would be on arts-related topics. So like best practices, if there's like a specific event coming up, having the event promoter come and speak about their event, and what volunteer opportunities there are, all kinds of things like that. We typically try to coordinate that with staffs just so that we can, help. At times we can help you find someone if it's something of interest to you. Also, we just want to make sure that we're vetting any of the speakers as well, and making sure that they're aligned with what the goals of the commission are, the goals of the city, and
The work
such.
plan.
So,
Okay. So there is a model for that, obviously. Yeah. Right.
there is.
Any other thoughts on that idea? I'd be happy to help work up some language on that as well, if we wanted to add that to the work plan, so. Okay. All right, so moving on. Where are we now? Oh, yeah, the update, okay.
Have you all had a chance to read through this? Do you have any questions that I can answer?
I love the photos. I'd also be very happy to see this in one of our local papers so that the public can see it.
Thank you for putting it together, because I know
It's wonderful.
I
Yeah.
initiated that being a standing item, so it was really great to see all of that information in one spot and be able to build upon it meeting by meeting. I think will be really fantastic.
We will be adding a web page where we'll be keeping the information in there as well. I haven't had a chance to get that done just yet.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Fox, that was a really good idea to have that regular update. I think that'll be a great thing for us. All right, and are we on the Cultural Arts Division report? Throw it over to you.
So I just have a couple of items outside of the things that we've already discussed. The Arts and Economic Prosperity Survey, I know we touched on it. We've got just a few more months, and I cannot stress enough how much your advocacy with our arts organizations could really be of assistance. It would be lovely if we could get them all to participate. There's continues to be pushback and not feeling like they have time, and it feels overwhelming, and they flat out tell us no when we want to bring the volunteers and the materials and do all of the heavy lifting. So any organizations you're involved with who are having any nonprofit arts organizations that are having events in Encinitas between now and May 31st, please reach out to me, to Jess, and just advocate for them allowing us to do these audience intercept surveys, because the data collected from that is part of a very comprehensive and well-respected report that they can use towards getting grants. It validates the economic contributions of nonprofit arts organizations to a community. So this is a heavy, heavy advocacy role on your part, and we have just a short period of time. Part 2 of this is, in addition to the audience intercept surveys, the organizational surveys have been emailed out by Americans for the Arts. So if in conversations with any of those organizations, they say, gosh, I got this thing and I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it, or, ugh, it's so much work, or just advocate for, please fill it out. If you have any questions, reach out to Ben, who is the person with Americans for the Arts who sent it out. Reach out to me, I'll help. getting that information fills in another part of that economic contribution from the organizational side. How much staff do they have? What do they do? What is their organization's contribution to jobs and that economic side of things? That's going to be closing pretty soon. So it's just so important, and we're here to help. We're getting close to the end, and just can only reach out so far. So thank you in advance for doing that. And then the other part is the community grant program. The deadline just ended. We're going to be, Kathleen is the panelist for the Commission for the Arts, and we'll be reviewing all of those on March 14th. And it is at the April 19th. Julie, am I correct? April 19th City Council meeting when those will be allocated. Yes. And that is my Cultural Arts Division report.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for the reminder on really pushing the message on the surveys. Let me see. So the second part of that,
The commission calendar, Wednesdays at noon, continue to be very popular, drawing a tremendous talent to come. If you haven't had the opportunity to go to one of those noon concerts, there is no better talent, no better performance that you'll enjoy. So every Wednesday, except the Wednesday between Christmas and New Year's, and usually one or two in the summer. Music by the Sea continues. The March concert is on the 24th. It is a brass band. Should be very exciting. Really looking forward to that. And I'm not sure why it nudged it in, but the next item should be the Encinitas Friends of the Arts report, which I don't know if we may or may not need, considering the presentation we had earlier.
Yeah, I would say we don't, there isn't any more I can say than I may have said.
All right, so now
Thank you.
here we are at item number 10. So these are commissioner or initiated agenda items. So if as an individual commissioner, there's an item that you would like to bring forward, you can do it here in a meeting, or, let's say 2 weeks before a meeting, you can send it to me. I will send you all the templates so that you've got it. There will be some yellow highlighted items in there. Those are obviously the things that you need to fill in. It'll say, who's doing it, some information about what it is you'd like to do. These are items that the commissioner who is initiating it does all the work. You do all the research, you do the presentation, you do all the parts. Under number 11, those are items that you may have an idea and it's something you're very interested in, but you need information from staff. So you might bring it up within a commission meeting and say, I am interested in this thing. Is anyone else interested? You need to have at least 2 commissioners who agree that this is something that they would like added to a future agenda. And then we do the work and we bring it back as an agenda report for you. Either it's information we need to give you, or we need to get it on an agenda so that you can discuss it within the public meeting at a future meeting. So having said that, under number 10, are there any commission member initiated agenda items? And are there any questions?
I'm still like kind of brainstorming it.
No problem. Are there any future agenda items under number 11 that the commission has to request? All right.
Okay, looks like we'll move on to number 12, commissioners' reports. And I think this is just reporting from our, those of us who are part of or liaisons to other organizations. I think that's the point where we are. now, or no?
Relevant to,
Right.
your role as a commissioner and, like you
Yes,
said. Yes.
yeah.
So you were at Art Night sharing your experience.
Right, and I talked a little bit about that, so I won't go on about that. I'll just add that I was at as the liaison to the Cultural Tourism Committee with the other organizations around the city. A couple things that were mentioned that are coming up that are arts-related are the Full Moon Poets Poetry Slam on March 21st. And I don't know if everybody's seen this. There's a new iconic, I think this is new, iconic Encinitas magazine. I have a few copies here, and there are some arts-related stories and resources in here if anybody wants to check that out. Naime also spoke at that meeting with pretty much the same presentation, so I don't have too much else to add from CTC. I don't know if anybody else, I don't know if you.
I'll just say I think the reports too is an opportunity for anyone to speak. So you don't have to have been on part of something.
Sure,
But
sure.
I just want to welcome the other members. I'm really excited to work all together. And I think it proves to be a really exciting year. So, yay.
On Saturday afternoon, my husband and I attended for the first time, the community orchestra presentation of the Sanson program, and it was really very well presented, and the music was beautiful. It was really impressive that a completely unprofessional group of musicians could put such a professional program together, and that's a very challenging piece. All three of them are very challenging pieces of music, and so I was much more impressed with them than I ever was just hearing about their performances. To actually see them in action was
What were the
wonderful.
pieces called again?
It's the community orchestra,
What was the pieces?
Sanson Concerto for cello.
Oh.
The first concerto and the concerto with organ.
For which instrument?
The organ.
Organ.
It was done at the Methodist Church, and now it's giant organ.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, my husband loves that piece of music, and he actually had tears in his eyes when the organ came bursting. It was pretty funny. Anyway, so that's, we'll definitely be paying more attention to their performances in the future.
Well, thank you. And anybody else?
I'd also like to
Please.
welcome the new members, and I think we're going to have a very productive year. So hope
I
you
did-
enjoy it.
I just forgot to mention that I worked on the color palette focus group for Pacific View, and it was an interesting experience, and I was happy to participate. So I look forward to making those decisions. And the reason I bring it up is that City Council, I believe this is true still, has given the Art Commission the final say. So as far as choosing between those designs. So we are an advisory board, but this is one instance where we do get to make a decision. So that's an exciting thing to think about for our next meeting.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. And I echo the big welcome to everybody new on the panel. And I think our business is closed here. So we will adjourn the meeting at 7:05, we'll call that. Okay. Never used a gavel before.